Welcome to Mindshift, I'm Brandon, and today I'm covering a question that I get asked more than almost any other question, and that is, Brandon, once you left religion, then what? How did you cope? What do you believe in? How do you avoid nihilism? If there's truly no God, or the specific God concept that I was raised to believe in, now what? If there's no grounded meaning or morality, how do you exist? How do you move on? How are you not paralyzed? How are you not afraid? And on and on and on. So often the focus of this channel is talking about having a mind shift. That shift is shifting away from that with which we were indoctrinated towards, shifting away from that which we accepted without good reason. And often that looks like the deconstruction and deconversion of our childhood religions. Primarily what I have focused on this channel is the deconversion of Christianity, where I put forward case after case after case for why we can know that this God is not real and why this religion is actually harmful or potentially harmful, and thus our responsibility to wake up, to have actual good evidence and reason to believe if we are going to, and if we cannot come up with those things, have the courage and the open-mindedness and the discipline to leave those things behind. But often it stops right there. And so today I want to try to answer a lot of those questions that get posed to me all the time. I understand the terror. I understand the existential dread. I understand the hopelessness or despair. I understand the loss and lack of community. But for as negative as all of those things can sound and can be, I believe there is more than a silver lining. I believe there is real opportunity, true freedom and beauty that comes right alongside accepting the truth wherever it may lead. And that has been the foundational goal of this channel. So enough of the intro, let's get into it here. And I want to talk first about what I hear most, and that is this incorrect association with atheism and nihilism. I think the first thing to do would be to define both of these terms really quickly, just so we have some working definitions. First, atheism. Atheism is so simple. We are not a community. This is not a worldview. This is not a religion, despite what any Christian apologist wants to say. It is simply a lack of belief. Now, the words can get defined further: a lack of belief in a certain God, or these gods, or all gods, whatever you want to say. For me personally, I've explained many times that I'm atheistic to the man-made gods. The mythology and lore and folk tales and God concepts that humans have come up with so far are all ones I don't believe in. I am without belief. I am not convinced of the evidence by. I'm agnostic to a greater concept. Maybe there's a creator, maybe not. Maybe this creator wants nothing to do with us. Maybe the information hasn't been revealed. Whatever. Don't care. Doesn't matter. If they're not interacting, it doesn't affect my life. And if I can't know, I'm not going to claim to know. But the God concepts that have been stated with specific claims that I believe can be falsifiable, I am atheistic towards. So again, it's subjective. I've got no problem with that. And we're going to talk a little bit today about just accepting these subjective experiences in our life. As for nihilism, it's a tricky thing to define. Many people have different ideas about nihilism. I would say that one is nihilistic if one believes that because there is no grounded morality or meaning, where these things are simply not objective in a higher source, if that leads them to a sense of apathy or hopelessness, or, well, nothing matters, so what? That kind of an attitude. I think that's a pretty good working definition. I think that there's some nitpicking you could do between nihilism and pessimism and apathy. Nietzsche is someone who is good to bring up here, because Nietzsche defines passive nihilism as this bad thing. If it is causing you to just lie in bed and let the world pass you by and believe that you shouldn't do anything or care about anything if there isn't some objective morality or meaning, he views that as a negative, which is hilarious because so many people, when they think of nihilism, they think of Nietzsche. While we're here, we'll just talk about Nietzsche for a minute, because one of the things that I want to encourage everyone is not to just follow Nietzsche. I like Nietzsche. There's some things I disagree with, but it is to investigate other idea systems, other philosophies. Nietzsche saw the collapse of traditional religious and moral frameworks. There's no denying that. As people began to collectively lose their belief in this particular God and creator, a lot of his critique was on Christianity. There was going to be a byproduct of that, or multiple byproducts of that, one of them being this passive nihilism. But Nietzsche did not embrace this. He fought against it. He rallied against it. Nietzsche has this idea of the will to power, which again, many people have seen in many different ways. So some of the negative connotations, it's not what I'm going for. But in its core is an affirmation of life. of accepting the challenge of redefining value, to embrace the uncertainty and the struggle as opportunities for increasing yourself, becoming greater, actualizing. He viewed the decline of these traditional moral concepts based off of their religious connotations as something beneficial. We get to reevaluate on a case-by-case, issue-by-issue basis, and that has been true for me, not because of Nietzsche, but because Nietzsche was good at looking at the outcomes of what could be, and that's my story. As soon as I left God behind and my particular religion, I had to ask myself, why do I believe what I believe now? And there are some really silly things that I sat down to really think about. Why is this bad? How can I consider it bad? What is good? What should I be striving towards? You become a blank slate, and that's terrifying. But again, that's freedom. The very fact that we get to define meaning gave meaning. I think that it's still going to be subjective, and we have to understand that, but that doesn't mean we haven't been able to pull together as cultures and societies to define things that are more beneficial versus less beneficial and do our best to help generate that benefit for as many people as possible. It doesn't always go well. Nothing does. There's no perfect system. And if you think Christianity had all the answers, we're going to cover that in just a minute. Why it's okay to let go of Christianity, that it's not all it was cracked up to be. And this could be said for pretty much any religion. Long story short, Nietzsche saw nihilism as this segue, this necessary temporary condition that occurred when one lost what was their previous backing, their previous grounding, and that it would be up to us to make that transition away as religion fell. There was going to be kind of this dip and then hopefully this revival, if you will. And I like that view. I like the idea, and I found it to be true for myself, that just because when you leave something, it's hard or even makes things worse, it doesn't mean you were wrong to leave it. It doesn't mean the thing you were leaving was good, beneficial, or true. And it doesn't mean that things can't get better because of it. I think this is true in almost every aspect of life, but I'll leave Nietzsche alone for a minute. I just thought maybe it'd be beneficial to bring that up so that you can see that as you start to expand your awareness and perspectives of how other people have thought about this and the fact that other people have thought about this, that other people have dealt with this, it can A, give you some comfort, B, maybe teach you something, whether you agree with it or not, you're at least starting to figure out who you are, and C, can hopefully make you feel less hopeless because there's action here. So that was a long way of defining atheism and nihilism, but I think that it was important. And what I think it's going to set us up to next is to say why it's okay. In this particular example, I am going to be talking about Christianity, to leave religion behind. There is this concept from someone who used to be a believer that was like, it's black or white. Within religion, I was told that my meaning, my morality, my purpose, everything came from God. And now that I don't believe in God, in this concept over here, I lose those things. You never had those things. This is like paramount to understand. You were already a subjective creature that had attached itself to subjective meaning and subjective morality that you subjectively grounded in an objective claim of God. That doesn't make it objective, right? So think about the fact that you did have value. You did have meaning. You did have purpose. You did have morality. Now I'm speaking to the non-believer here, but if you've really come to a place of not believing, of recognizing that those God claims, your former religion, was false, then you already know that in a world without objective morality and meaning, you can still find those things. Now, under your religion, it was under a trick. It was under a guise. Under this new opportunity of non-belief, it's under your control. What freedom. And of course, I know there's going to be Christians that watch this and they're like, oh man, that's so dangerous. What a slippery slope. Like, we're such fallen, sinful creatures left to our own devices. What will we come up with? Pretty good things. Not always, not for everyone, but we have already, as a secular society, surpassed the morals of the Bible. The example I point to all the time is that we've done what the Bible could not. We abolished slavery. You cannot make a biblical case completely impartial, yes, but not completely against slavery? How about seeing women as equals? The Bible simply does not. How about not taking a whole class of people like gay people and demonizing them as abominations, right? If you're still having issues here, it's because you haven't fully deconstructed how immoral this God concept was. And I have many videos to help you with that. So again, I need to assume for this video, a lot of you are already on the page. You understand, yes, religion has these harms. Yes, religion has these immoralities, but it was still something grounded. And now I'm not grounded. And now I'm scared. Now I don't know what to do. Now I'm feeling depressed. Gotcha. Okay, so here we are. I think if you're new to leaving your religion, you can maybe do a transition that is somewhat organic. Many modern Christians today really only hold the morality of the New Testament. And the New Testament was a pretty big fan of virtue ethics. Now, Paul, coming from the Greco-Roman world, was trying to marry these virtue ethics, and it got really messy really fast. But a lot of the things you already believed in as a Christian, like temperance, justice, courage, and wisdom, well, you've just described the four main pillars of Stoicism. There's a lot of Stoicism in the New Testament. It just, again, gets tied to a Jesus concept that really hurts it more than it helps it. So, am I saying everyone should be a Stoic? No. And again, there's a lot of incorrect ideas about Stoicism, or what I prefer, Epicureanism, which people look at that and they're like, oh, that's just purely hedonistic. So many misconceptions, so fun for all the future videos where we can talk about philosophy. And if that's something you want to hear me talk about more on this channel, especially if you're enjoying this conversation so far, please let me know. But what an easy transition to still say, here's things that I did believe were important and that even without a God, I can see the value in for myself and for others. And maybe you ground yourself, if that's something you're feeling you need, in an idea or a philosophy. But again, this video is not to defend Stoicism. I just wanted to point out maybe something that might be kind of natural for you as you are leaving, say, Christianity to move into a different form of virtue ethics that is not rooted in that particular religion. Now, some of the Stoics do tie some of their ethics to a providential idea, still associating it with the gods or the fates. But again, way less baggage. And that's the thing that I'd encourage everyone to understand. There's good parts of most religions. You can take a lot of principles or things that you liked or that worked for you or that you felt made you a better person or increased your value to society, to the community, etc., and still hang on to those. Rejecting Christianity is not rejecting every part of Christianity. You do not need to throw the baby out with the bathwater. If you've come to believe that forgiveness is better than holding a grudge, just because forgiveness has been stolen and labeled as a Christian idea does not mean that you need to not be forgiving now that you're not a Christian. If anything, my ability to forgive has gone up because I'm filled with compassion and empathy and understanding for why people believe what they believe, because I was stuck in a belief that I now find to be incorrect for 30 years of my life. Who am I to judge someone else who is still stuck there, that didn't get the same opportunities for a perspective that helped change their mind that I did? I think you'll hear this from many people that have deconverted, that they actually became more moral, that they actually became more compassionate, more understanding. This is the other thing, a lot of people who are still holding on to this inner fight of, well, Christianity was right and good, and so not being Christian is bad, sinful. And even though they don't really believe in this concept anymore, they're still stuck in these defining categories. And this goes back to Nietzsche. He called it a slave mentality, and it absolutely is. I am not my own. I am the Lord's. God can do whatever he wants to me. He's sovereign. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Replace Lord with Master, and you'll quickly see how disgusting it starts to sound. We are told to be living sacrifices, that our bodies are not our own. They are temples of worship to this higher being. So even if you're living your life on earth through all these great Christian virtue ethics, and you're doing all of this, and you're trying to be kind and turning the other cheek and loving your enemies, which can also set you up for harm, why are you doing it? And you can try to talk about the selflessness of Christianity, but even Jesus says how you should be doing these things. And when he does so, he usually ends with, so that you can get this, or so that you can avoid this. When Jesus tells you to pray in private and not make a big deal, like the Pharisees do in the synagogues, it's so that you don't receive your earthly reward of people's praise, but so that you receive your heavenly reward from your Father. When we are told how to fast, that we should not go around moping and talking about how hard it is, because we receive our reward earthly from people's feeling bad for us or being impressed by us, so it doesn't get in the way of receiving the reward from the Father. It's a rewards-based system. So if you're finding yourself in a position where you're like, man, without Christianity, like, I can't be altruistic. What? It's not altruism. Christianity isn't altruism. It's chasing a carrot and avoiding a stick. Christianity is a slave mentality because it gets you to give up the one life you have for a promise of a potential life that you have no way to know if it actually exists. And even if it does, it's under completely selfish motivation to make sure that you get there. So again, before you continue to tell yourself the same feedback loops that were preached at you for however long you were in the religion of how holy and perfect and beautiful and truthful and real those things are, and how evil and bad and sinful man is, or the lack of this God is, I think you really need to deconstruct the religion and understand why those things aren't real and or beneficial. I think that will help. So again, the point of this wasn't for me to make a video where I could just shake my finger again at Christianity, but really for whatever religion you come from, understanding the reality of it, how it works, why it's progressed, why it's been effective, why people in power have wanted to utilize it for control, might help you accept your new subjective experience. Let me just suggest some other things you might look into. Secular humanism. It is an understanding that in lieu of a God-given source of meaning or morality, we humans can create this for ourselves, emphasizing the value of human reason, human ethics, individual freedom. You could explore utilitarianism, where you're really just looking at the greatest good for the greatest amount of people. Again, it's not perfect, and you can look into differences between act and rule utilitarianism. Some is more beneficial than others, but that's the whole point. We're looking for what can do the most good. And you can start selfishly, and that's totally okay. Acknowledge the fact that through evolutionary purposes, the only reason we are here is because we were selfish, right? This goes back to like Dawkins, the selfish gene. If we weren't looking out for number one, if we weren't trying to pass on our genes to keep us alive and in existence, we wouldn't have. The organisms that didn't have that drive didn't make it. That doesn't mean, though, that along the evolutionary time frame, as we got into bigger social circles, we didn't find the need to start working together. And then this selfish version of charity started to play itself out into bigger and bigger circles. I need to be able to communicate. I need to be able to trade. I need to be able to empathize and put myself in that tribe's situation. They don't have food right now. We do. That could be us sometime. If I want them to give me food when that's me, then I should give them food now. Society, right? We could argue all day about if there's truly a selfless act, if there's anything that is actually close to altruism, but does it matter ultimately? Is win-win not still a fine solution? And this is something else that I feel is so important. It doesn't have to be emotionally satisfying. We've covered 2 Tuesday takedowns in a row where you have 2 very different kinds of people, both essentially saying the same thing. There has to be something more because I want there to be something more, or I feel that there should be something more. You wanting it, feeling it, or desiring it does not make it so. Some of the things that we have to accept when we lose a God concept, religion, grounded morality, grounded meaning, is that it's not going to feel emotionally satisfying. That's why those false answers were made up in the first place. It sucks to say, I don't know. It sucks to say, I'm scared of death because I don't know what happens after I die. So we made things up, placeholders, gap fillers, and of course, religions that offer answers make you feel better because we seek answers. So I'm not trying to scare you off, but there is a harsh reality to reality, and it is that it is reality. It doesn't have to look like anything or do anything or make you feel a certain way. But in lieu of that, or rather maybe because of that, is the call to action to create it as much as we can for ourselves. If we recognize that suffering is going to be a part of this thing, there's no God causing it, there's no one to blame, it's just the organic property of being alive. Is there anything we can do as agents to alleviate that suffering just a little bit for ourselves and or for others? And if we do alleviate it for others, maybe that actually will help alleviate it for ourselves. Maybe that will give us a sense of meaning and purpose. That's fine. That's great. That's so much more beneficial than burying your head in the sand, claiming you know something you don't, and hoping for the best. I would rather, and have chosen rather, to accept the truth, accept reality, accept that there are things we can't know, that there are things like existential dread that suck to deal with, but they're there. They're part of the human existence. And until we have actual answers, I'm not going to play pretend. But that does not have to lead to nihilism, because again, I see it as an open door, an opportunity, a call to action. I now actually matter. People always say, without a God, nothing matters. No one will remember you. Give it a long enough time period and you will cease to exist in any imagination or memory, etc. But is that not also the case within Christianity? If you will spend infinity at the feet of the throne of God in heaven, how does anything you do here matter? Why do you bother pursuing a career? Why do you bother with your art, your creative side? Why do you bother with a family or love? Shouldn't you just try to get as many people to heaven as possible and then die? But what do we see with the majority of believers in any religion? They create meaning in their life. They choose a path. They look at what they're naturally gifted at, which is not a gift from anything or anyone. It is the circumstances of their life, their DNA, their genetics, their background, their culture, their upbringing, and they lean into that. They enjoy it. Some people do that with family. Some people do that with hobbies. Some people do that with chasing down existential questions, which existentialism is another thing you could look into, right? Look at all these open doors, and they're already doors that Christians go through all the time, despite having some objective meaning. I'm saying this not to take Christianity down, but to show you who were a former Christian that you're already capable and know how to create subjective meaning in your life. For all the Christians that choose to have kids and delight in them, despite the fact that Paul says it's better not to be married for the kingdom of God. So actually living in opposition to your objective meaning, did you still enjoy yourself? Did you still find purpose? Teaching them, raising them, loving them, supporting your partner, etc.? I would bet you did. See, you're already there. You already know how to do it. All you have to get rid of are the bad and incorrect ideas in your mind. I think what a lot of this comes down to for the person that is struggling after their deconversion is a lack of perspective or outside knowledge. You have been trapped, whether you know it or not, in a certain belief system for so long, surrounded by people that believe like that for so long, told incorrectly the danger and terror and harm and sin of these other things that can actually help in this situation, that you're still avoidant of it. My biggest encouragement to you would be enjoy your newfound freedom, which we both know is not going to be to run around and rape, kill, and pillage like believers told you you would do with your freedom now that you are not held to a higher accountability. Enjoy your freedom to figure out what matters to you. Enjoy the freedom of actual autonomy. What will you do with your freedom? Whatever your answer is, however you're thinking right now, is meaning that you're creating for yourself. And who cares if it doesn't matter in 300 years? And also, I think that's an incorrect way of thinking about it. I get that there is going to be a time frame. It doesn't matter who it is. At some point, either the heat death of the universe happens, or enough causal chains went on long enough that you were finally forgotten. But what if you are the one person that's nice to that little girl who's lonely and sad, and because of that, she then grows up to do something amazing, and it touches the lives of 10 more people, and one of those 10 people go on to do X, right? Like, there is an effect we're going to have. At some point, it will be forgotten, but there is no denying the cause and effect of things. And you being existent in this world means, however small and however fleeting, you will have an effect. What you do, say, think, and act will have an effect. That's a fact. It's a fact that gets buried by the Christian who is so scared of the other side that they immediately condemn it. Nothing matters without God. Nothing matters without Christ. Nothing matters if there's no afterlife. Wrong. However fleeting, however small your effects are, they're going to fall into one of three categories: positive, neutral, or negative, in terms of how they affect the environment, the world, other species, people, systems, governments, communities, policies, etc. So even as a selfish individual, if that's really all we are at the root of it, wouldn't we want more positive effects on all of those things because we're a part of those things? I think so. So the aim for me is really simple, is what I'm doing in my own hierarchy that I subjectively have with my wife and my children and my friends and my family and my neighbors and my community, all the way out to the entire universe, recognizing that I am just a part of that, no better or worse than anyone else. As my little ripple goes out, is it doing more good than harm? What I would hope to impress on you in this conversation is hope, even as an artsy, poetic word, not grounded in anything. If there is something that comes that we cannot know, the future, can we desire for it to be something? For most people, I would say better, good, without pain, an improvement over the current standard. Then we can hope towards that. And unlike faith, and just assuming or being assured of it because you wanted it, and handing the responsibility and the reins off to a God to create it, what can you as the individual with that hope, that expectation, might be a better secular term, towards the future, be doing to bring it into existence or help bring it into existence? If you need more meaning than that, I don't know what else to tell you. So I would hope to impart hope. I would desire for you to become comfortable in the subjective, in the times that aren't emotionally satisfying, in the absence of the core of what you were taught for so long in your life. It's okay to wrestle with it. It's okay not to know the best answer for it. It's okay to get stuck, and it's also okay to move forward. I would want to make sure that I have shown the importance of deconstructing what has been for you. Even if you've been raised a secular atheist from the get-go, have you deconstructed if that's an accurate position? Have you seen if there's not a reason to believe the other side? Within the framework that you were taught of what is good and what is bad, have you looked at that and why? Have you backed it up as far as you can in your understanding? I think that deconstruction should be an ongoing process for everyone forever. Examining ourselves, checking ourselves, desiring that we are finding truth. But Brandon, is truth even objective? I don't think so. We can't know anything for sure. Talked about this so much, but I'll say it. We could be in a simulation. We could be some alien experiment. We could have the VR goggles on. We could be a Boltzmann brain. There's so many things that would immediately rob us of any objective truth. But insofar as we can be here, and that things seem to be pretty consistent, and that we seem to be able to measure and observe cause and effect, and that some things are better predictors than other things, and that some things give us a higher certainty of the future or our outcomes or our expectations, etc. That's why the scientific method is so good versus what we had before for knowing anything insofar as we can know it. In all of that, truth matters. And that's why my mission statement throughout this whole process has been willing to follow the truth wherever it may lead. And the last thing that I would hope you get from this is patience. It's okay to be afraid. It's okay not to know right away. It's okay to feel lost. It's okay that it's hard. It's okay that there was this dipping point of leaving that and dealing with the inherent losses and the friends and the family and the relationships that were affected by it. Be patient with yourself, with your own reactions, with your own ability to forgive people, with your own ability to find the empathy and get the better perspectives, with your own ability to get new information and make new decisions and find that subjective meaning for yourself. Just be patient and take action towards it. For me personally, this gets to the subjective part of me sharing a bit more of my story. I took action via reading. I took action via learning the realities about what we can know, understanding the sciences better, understanding my own brain better, the neuroscience of it, the psychology of it, because so many things that I was still getting held up on were because of the things I had incorrectly come to believe about our universe and our bodies, when there is better, more approximate to truth information out there on these kinds of subjects. I think philosophy gets a bad rap, but I think that it is an excellent answer. And I know not everyone is philosophically minded, but I am of the opinion that everyone lives out of philosophy. If you were someone who just went to church every Sunday to hear the pretty words and then try to put them into action, that was your philosophy. If you're someone who says philosophy is stupid, you don't care about that, the only thing that's real is what's happening right in front of you, that's a philosophy. So if you're going to have a philosophy, what is it based on? Do you understand it? Have you critiqued it? And that might just lead you into an interest in philosophy. And so what I'm going to do in the description of this video is I'm going to have a link to an Amazon page with recommended reading for just this topic in particular. Later, when I have more time, I'll put together a recommended reading in general. But when it comes to building your own philosophy, understanding your world and yourself better, seeing how other people have dealt with these problems, and gaining more perspective to help you accomplish all of these goals and get you out of your stuck mud that you don't like to be in. That's the other thing. If you have been one of those people that commented to me and said, Brandon, can you help? What do I do about this? I'm feeling nihilistic. If you were truly nihilistic in the definition of the word, you wouldn't have even cared enough to seek help. Just by watching this video, having an interest in this at all, desiring for something better for your life, wanting, even if it's as selfish as just to avoid the pain of the moment now, you have a great start. And maybe I was born a dumb optimist, but I am excited for you. I think that this is potential. And I think that potential is always exciting because it's yet to be. And with our newfound autonomy, we get to play a part in that. What could be more beautiful? What could be more freeing? I'm grateful for the opportunity to share what has worked for me. And I know I didn't get into a lot of specifics because I want to keep this a little more open. Because if you just try to replicate my path, it's not going to equal anything. The whole point here is you finally get your own path. And all I can do is encourage you, hopefully empower you. Maybe all you needed was one person to say, it's okay that you feel this way. It's normal that you feel this way. And it doesn't have to last. I don't pretend that I help everyone, but I know for a fact, because of the kindness and generosity of you being willing to share it, that I've helped many of you. That's awesome. Go help someone and tell me it doesn't provide you with relief, with meaning. And even if it is subjective and temporary, and even if it won't matter in eternity, and all the things the Christians will say to bring that point down, isn't it better than to not have helped, right? If you're just faced with the two options, if we make this as black and white as possible, of staying in bed, nihilistic, nothing matters, apathy, or even leaning into hedonism, whatever you choose to do with there is no God, there is no morals, there is no meaning. Is it not equally as real to say, well, nothing matters, so I'll create my own? And even if it won't matter in the end, I see that person over there is suffering and I know I can do something about it. I think that as much as we can't truly ground these things in an objective source, there are patterns that remain more true than others. There are realities of our brain chemistry. Helping someone else versus feeling sorry for yourself, they've studied this. And even if you're helping someone else for the selfish reason of not feeling sorry for yourself, it still works. Why would you not be erring on this side? So my subjective advice, go help someone. Make this life about more than just yourself, and it will naturally improve things for yourself. You don't have to make it in anything fake. You don't have to make it in any huge claims that can't be proven. We're lucky enough to live in a time and place where we do have some of this knowledge. We do have a better grasp on happiness, on perspective, on altruism, from a psychological and a neuroscience level that tell us there are better ways actually, or more beneficial ways in terms of even the most selfish desire of seeking pleasure to live this life. And it's not by being selfish. It worked up until a point, and now that we're in societies and cultures and groups, it's changed. There's no need to fight that. This is what happens when we talk about a really abstract concept for a topic. I could just go on forever. But I do hope that you can see my example of someone that was dependent to the highest degree on this God and on their religion and on their communities within that concept and religion, that lost it all. And yet here I am, a functioning member of society who is personally happy and satisfied with their life, who knows that they have an impact, however fleeting, who takes pleasure and meaning in that, who still tries to be moral, that has found themselves more moral since leaving religion, that has new passions, and all of this without a God, and all of this in lieu of what I've lost. If it can be me, it can be you. And on that note, I will end things and say, thanks for being here. Please let me know your comments. If there's anything you'd like me to expand on in the future in a different video, if we want to go more in depth in a particular angle, great. Tell me what you're curious about. Check out the books in the description for more resources. And until next time, keep thinking. I wanted to personally thank my top tiers of support, my Iconoclast and GVI, Jacob, Joe, Martin, Oliver, Perry, Rokkit, and Shawn, my Humanist heroes, Jarrod and Kristi, my Atheist advocates, Caleb, Jeffrey, Karen, Sparky, and Todd, as well as all of my secular scholar patrons. If you believe in the mission of this channel or you just enjoy the content, please consider joining these fine people. Thanks and have a great day.